Okay, an update on this 2005 Prius. The steps we're going to take on this particular vehicle, since the other two videos which you've seen, we did not find a considerable size leak. This is going to come back for repairs later on those O-rings that are wet back there. The condenser is going to be a wait and see on the condenser, because due to the fact that this goes off-road and it gets, this area down here gets packed with dust right where they go on a dusty road, and that's where all the dust, there's no fresh oil anywhere on this condenser. I do not want to do a false condemn of a compressor and cost the customer the price of a condenser. Even though this vehicle has 200,000 miles on it, there's no reason to just jump the gun and say, hey, this is a bad condenser, let's change the condenser, because there's no evidence it's a bad condenser. O-rings, very slow leak back there. Evaporator can't pick up anything. But I wanted to show you this one thing. When you're doing a test and the hood is open and you have it on fresh air mode, right now the air temperature outside, ambient air temperature in San Francisco, is 57 degrees at 90% humidity. The temperature of the air flowing over the engine from the radiator to this point here is 89 degrees. 57 degrees out here, 89 degrees right here, because of the airflow coming off of the fans from the hot radiator and condenser. We have the exhaust manifold radiating up heat right here. This is 89 degrees. So if you take your temperature here, you will get false readings of the load of the temperature that is actually going over the evaporator coil, because this is not just pulling air right here, it's pulling air from the leaks over here that's cold from behind the fender and everything. It's pulling leaks from all these little openings. It's pulling in air from over here. All that is going to this one point. So when we open this one point, you see right back there, that's where the air gets sucked in to go down to the condenser. So we're at 89 degrees here. When I take this temperature probe and I put it right here, it's getting the mix of all the air that is coming together and mixing down here. Now, the more correct, which is bad English, if I could put a temperature sensor right where the fan intake or the evaporator would even be closer to truth. The temperature at the point, at the tip of my sensor right now, when I go down here, it's 74 degrees. So the temperature dropped from 89 degrees right here, sucking, to 74 degrees down in the crowd where all the air is getting mixed. You would get false numbers. If you use your PT chart and you use your delta T and you're trying to take the averages, you would be way off the chart, because the air temperature out here is 57 degrees. The air temperature right here is 89 degrees. The air temperature going down into the evaporator is actually 74 degrees. So all those numbers and charts you use mean absolutely nothing if you are not taking your temperature right at the source. And that also goes for the temperature over your evaporator. On some cars, the pressure of the air going in, and when they're missing the plastic shroud underneath, and they're missing some of the foam because they might have been to a body shop and all the foam around the condenser is missing, you could have 140 degree air coming through the engine compartment, coming around, wrapping around, going around the condenser and hitting the fins and putting superheated 140 degree air, 120 degree air over the corners of each one of on the sides of the condenser. You can have air coming from underneath, wrapping around from under the condenser behind the radiator and coming up the first inch or two of the condenser and putting 120, 140 degree air, superheating the refrigerant. And if you were using any kind of charts or measurements, they would all be off and wrong. If you don't have the equipment and the know-how, having the best equipment does you nothing. If you don't know where to press where to place your probes, where to take temperatures, like for your superheat or your subcooling. Right here, the closer you could get, often I do the same vehicle all the time. This is easier. It's easier for me to clamp right here, but there's a few degrees difference between putting this temperature probe here and putting this temperature probe here. Same goes for the superheat. When taking the superheat, if I take the superheat right there, or if I come all the way over here and I hook onto the suction line over here, the superheat will be different because it runs along the exhaust manifold. It has hot air blowing over the line. It's picking up temperature. It will give you a false reading. So if you don't, it doesn't matter if you have good tools. If you don't know where to place them, then you'll get wrong measurements. And like I said before, when you do a Prius, it should get cold and start fogging up. That's how you know when you've done your Prius right. All right, this customer is going to go on the way. It's a full charge. It works great. I'm kind of confident that there is not a leak at the condenser, but I could be proven wrong, and time will tell because I have trace dye in the system, which you can see the green right there. Okay, so that'll be my indicator for later on if the condenser is leaking. I believe that's slow enough. They could go long enough with this charge of refrigerant, what is a full charge, to come back later and condemn the condenser or the evaporator or any other part. See you guys if we get an update.